Welcome everybody to my podcast, Big Little Small Talk. I'm Megan O'Hara-Sullivan and I love to talk, but I also love to listen. If you're new here, welcome. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoy the episode. Welcome along to Big Little Small Talk. You're with me, Megan O'Hara-Sullivan. I'm here today with a very special person I met just on the weekend, actually. I was at a Donate Life service of remembrance for people who have either received or given organ transplants, and I met this wonderful lady called April Hitzke. So welcome along to Big Little Small Talk, April.
Thank you.
So a few years ago, you were the recipient of a
double lung transplant.
Okay, and what were the circumstances of you needing a double lung transplant? What happened leading up to that?
I'd say about 8 years ago, I had a flu, and I never really recovered from that flu, and I got another flu, and I was just very, very sick, and I started coughing, and my cough never stopped for 6 years. So it became basically all they could figure out was it became an autoimmune disease, which led to interstitial lung disease. So what happened is my lungs started getting white all over them, and it was hard. Like I think with emphysema, it's soft, lungs come soft, but mine became really hard, and they couldn't figure out. I went in for a lot of tests, and I did a lung biopsy, and they just couldn't figure out why this is going on and what's happening. So I had that. It kept getting worse and worse, and I went from one specialist to another. And then they did tell me when I went to the respiratory doctor in Brisbane that I was going to have to they're going to refer me to a lung transplant specialist. And I was just, for me, I don't know, that was just not something that I wanted to hear, because the idea of, someone dying so I could have a set of lungs, kind of bothered me. So what we did is instead, we heard about this guy in America that does stem cells. So we went to America and had a lot of community support. They helped us get over there, and I got this stem cell treatment. But by then my lungs were just way too far gone. We do think that it helped my heart. But by the end of this treatment, it was like 12 weeks. Like I went to America walking, and then I came back in a wheelchair. Something happened, like especially the last probably month that I was there, something happened to this thing that had gone slowly for 6 years, it just kind of progressed rapidly. So
Just tell me what does having a stem what is it called?
Stem cells
transfer. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what they do is they get stem cells either from your own body, or they got these from I think the Harvard Medical School, and I didn't want them from my own body because I just didn't know if they'd be any good. But they get the stem cells, and like for 12 weeks, they would just infuse me with these stem cells. And what they're supposed to do, usually stem cells go to the lungs first. They go to the lungs and then the heart. So that's what we were hoping, is that it would, make a difference in my lungs. And it's supposed to work within 3 months. And we just saw that it wasn't happening. So, but a lot of people, when they have the kind of thing I had with no oxygen, it does affect their heart. So my heart was, fine, thankfully.
So it affects your heart in a good way or a bad way?
Oh, sorry. When you are losing oxygen, it can really, like I know a person, and his wife had kind of the same thing, and she had a heart attack, or her heart failed because she wasn't getting oxygen.
Because the heart has to work so much harder to try and get the oxygen.
And even one thing that showed that I wasn't getting oxygen was it sounds kind of weird, but his fingernails kind of do this slight little curl over, and one of the nurses at Toowoomba Base noticed it, and I was like, oh, it wasn't real noticeable, but it was just something she noticed, and that just tells you your body isn't getting enough oxygen. So I went on to...
I thought you were going to say that your nails were going blue. I was going to say, look, I'm no doctor, but even I know that. Yeah.
Yes.
She noticed that your nails were going...
Oh, yes, yeah. So this is when I started to get really sick. And I did go to the emergency a few times because I lost my breath. I basically lose my breath daily. It was really weird, because I knew that day, every day I woke up and I knew sometime today I'm going to lose my breath. And it was something that went on for a few minutes. I would just, all of a sudden it would come on me, and I would just lose it was like a fish out of water. And so I was on oxygen, and then I put the oxygen on probably when we came back to Australia, and I never took it off until my transplant. So for like 6 months, I was on high oxygen, and you can only turn your oxygen up so much. So when the oxygen got to the highest level, it was kind of like I was a bit scared because, you can't turn it up anymore. So I'm like, okay. But at the same time, I felt, like everything was going to be all right, and had a very supportive family, my husband, and I have a little special needs daughter. So I think my thing was I really wanted to be around for her. I want to be strong. I've always wanted to be strong for her, be there, and, be able to do all the things that as a mom, that I can do for her. So what happened is I came back, and it just became to the point where I didn't even I couldn't get out. It just was too much effort to get the oxygen, and the fact that I might lose my breath, it was just so awful. So I just became kind of bedridden. I'd get up from the bed and then go to a chair, because we were staying at my mother-in-law's at that time because we needed, some help. So, and just even like if we had to unplug my oxygen for like just 1 minute, it just freaked me out, that I wasn't getting oxygen. So this just got worse and worse. And there's a list of things you have to do to get on the lung transplant list. And I was too sick to get out and do it. So I was just, laying in the bed, just hoping, that everything was going to be okay. Then my mom, she came over from America probably in, I think, May. And she was just like, look, we need to get you to the hospital. So one day I just woke up and I just went to the emergency room and after that I didn't come back home. I was at Toowoomba Base. They took care of me really well there. Because in Brisbane, because I went and did the stem cells, they're like, well, we don't know if you really want a lung transplant. We don't know if we want to give you one. And it's because they want to make sure you want it.
So tell me about that. Why did getting the stem cell, why did they think that you weren't really committed to a transplant?
Yeah, because I did tell them before I left for America, I said, I'm going to America to get stem cells, and I, don't really know how I feel about a transplant. And so they're like, the doctor they're so nice. They're really a great group of doctors. But he just said, we don't really want you to go. We don't think you should go. And I went ahead anyway. So, I thought I knew better, which I didn't, but yeah.
So are they worried about you not being fully on board with getting a transplant? Is that what they're worried about?
Yes.
Mentally? Or
yeah, exactly. They want to make sure, and I think that it's a great process. They want to make sure that that you really want this, because there's not a lot of, there's a shortage of, well, it sounds awful to say, but there is a shortage of organs. So, a lot of people wait. A lot of people never get their set of lungs. And usually what they want you to do is they want you to start the process early, so before you're really, really sick. But for me, I got really, really sick, and then, trying to do the process. And I hadn't walked for a long time, and you have to do a leg test too before they'll give you a set of lungs. So, I was just like so sick.
So what's the leg test?
70 kilograms.
Is it 70 kilograms?
You have to be able to lift 70 kilos.
Push with your legs.
70
and I remember,
kilos.
because I hadn't really walked around except to that chair in the front room for, I'd say, 6 months. And I remember the physio, he even tells me now, he said, I just was thinking, oh my goodness, is she going to, is this going to happen? Because he knew I was so sick and I could barely sit up on the table. So Nathan went back to back with me. He had Nathan sit behind me, because you have to sit on this high table, and then I did it, and I was just able, I don't even know how I was able to do it, but I was able to push that amount. So I guess, the part I missed to say, so I was at Toowoomba Base Hospital, and then they weren't sure at Prince Charles, if they wanted me there yet. What they did is they had a couple psychologists come and talk to me to make sure that I wanted it. And at that time I did want it. I'm like, okay, I want this. I want to live, I want to survive. So then Toowoomba Base Hospital called Prince Charles, and they're kind of like, oh, well, we'll have you come down and see what's happening. So they were kind of vague about it. So that's when I went down there. The very first day I was down there, I did the leg test. And they took really good care of me. And a physio I think the main physio, the person in charge of physio said that they were all kind of scared of me because I just could not breathe. So for me doing like stand up and sit down, it's like 3 of them was really, really hard. So then one day, was it the first day I got there, they let me know that they were going to put me on the list. Because the part I forgot to mention, at Toowoomba Base Hospital, they helped me check off the list of things that I needed to do, which was very hard.
Tell me about some of those things. What other things besides being able to push 70 kilos, which I don't think with me and my normal lungs could ever do anyway?
Yeah. Well, you have to have I had to have a breast screen. I had to have like skin check and a couple vaccinations and things like that. So it was a list of those kind of things, like just different things because they want to make sure before you go in there, like if you have cancer, any kind of skin cancer, they won't, give you you have to be free for 2 years from that. So it's just all those kind of things they're looking for.
Sure.
Yes.
Can I just back you up a little bit, April? The thing that I found, apart from everything, incredible about your story, I just want to go to that point where you thought that you had a bit of a lung infection and then suddenly someone's talking about transplant. This is before you went for the stem cell stuff. Was that a shock to you? That you were so sick that they're talking about, I would imagine you must have been on every medication and every...
Yeah, it was a shock. I don't know, looking back now, I don't know why it was a shock, but it was, I think I'm kind of the person, like I don't run to the doctor when I have, like I'm kind of, not that I don't like doctors, like I think they're amazing, but I don't just run to the doctor if there's something a little wrong. I'm like, oh, okay, just gonna see what's happening. So they gave me, before even that, they gave me a treatment. It's like, I looked up the drug and it's something they give to like chemo patients. So they were trying to get rid of the autoimmune disease. So for 6 months, I think it was, I would go in once a month for this treatment, which made me really sick. But that was one of the things they tried before saying, we're going to refer you to the lung. And I wasn't, like at that time I could walk around, I would just get a coughing fit every night. But I could walk around, I just couldn't exert myself too much. Or if it was, if it was too cold or too hot, I'd cough. But I wasn't really, at that point, I wasn't that worried. And then all of a sudden one day I woke up and I was like, this is not going away. So, yeah.
I wanted to talk to you about, you mentioned before about the sort of, that you just were like a fish out of water. And my mother had lung cancer, and I can remember a very good friend of mine who was a nurse said to me that lung cancer patients often have this terrible anxiety because they think that they're going to run out of oxygen and that they're not going to be able to get enough oxygen. Was that same sort of thing happening for you?
Oh yeah, I'd say I didn't think of it a lot, but except when I would do that thing where I lost my breath every day, I was just, like if, like we had this, we got the kind of oxygen, like first I just had a little condenser and then we got the big machine. And I just remember if it would happen, I think I had a bell I'd ring because my mother-in-law's house is pretty long. So, and someone would come running and so I would have, be like, turn my oxygen up. So it was something I thought about.
I bet they loved that bell in your house. As sick as you were, they probably wanted to throw that bell up the other end of the hallway sometimes, I'm sure. You talk about your daughter Chloe, and I want to talk about her in a little bit, but let's go back to, they tell you, were you in the hospital at Prince Charles when they said that they'd found a donor, or?
Yes.
Tell me through the circumstances of that.
Okay, so I went in that first day and got on the list. I was so happy that we were just so excited that I was on the list. And then they were, I could tell they were a bit worried about me, which, doctors don't usually let you know their feelings, but one of the doctors said, oh, the lung transplant nurse, she's really worried about you. And later I found out they had told my family that I probably only had a week to live because my lungs had become like little kind of honeycombs, just really kind of not much there to go on. So anyway, that was the circumstance of what was going on with my lungs. And then so they're like, oh, we hope we get a call this weekend. And I didn't get a call that weekend, but I got a call later on in the week. They called me early in the morning and said, we found, lungs for you. And I think I was kind of like, it was really bittersweet because I knew the reason I was getting lungs, like I said before, is that someone had passed away. So I kind of wasn't even excited, but I was, if that makes sense. So kind of felt, two ways about it. So
we're talking to Rachel, I was going to call you, April Hitzke, who's had a double lung transplant. And Nathan, April's husband, is here, and we're going to talk to him in a little minute too, to talk about the experience of being with someone. So you'd been in hospital about a week. They tell you that you've got a donor. What happens after that?
Yeah, I think it was 12 days? Yeah, so they told me that. So they, I don't know, like, it's kind of a small detail, but I just remember they make you take a shower, and I hadn't really showered in a shower for a very long time, since I was in hospital. So I just remember even the getting into the shower was so awful and felt so awful. And the nurse was just like, you got to get in there and do it. So I was all clean and ready. And, they do all the that special medication they put on, or the special stuff that really sterilizes everything.
The betadine, so that you're completely yellow, is it?
Yeah, well, yeah, I think that's what it was. Yes, and then so what happened is that was early in the morning, and I think we ended up so just waited all day, because the thing is with the organization, sometimes it can be what they call a dry run if there's someone else who needs it more. But I was I know they put me on the urgent list. Yeah, so I think I laid there until like 9 at night. They took me to theater, and we were there a few hours just, hoping that these lungs are going to come through, and they did that night. So, yeah.
You have the surgery. How long does that take? Is it the 12-hour mammoth, 24-hour?
It was less than they thought it would be, I think.
They were out in 5. We thought it was going to be 6.
Yeah, they were actually surprised. I think they said everything just went so well. And another interesting thing about my lungs is, what's the thing with the 6 lobes? Is it that everyone has 5 lobes on their lungs? So I think that's what it is. And the person I got the lungs from had 6. But what they did is when they cut that lobe off, it fit perfectly. So I thought that was really interesting.
Almost meant to be.
Yeah.
And they talk about the post-surgery, that you have that elation of being alive and sort of like a second life.
Oh, yeah.
But then you have that guilt too, and you mentioned that about that someone was going to had lost, and a family was grieving, obviously, for someone.
Yes,
so
yes.
How much of sort of psychological counselling do they give you before and after?
Yeah, they don't give you any counseling for it, really. But I know that after, they just want you to realize and appreciate what you're given. So they kind of, just that you're going to take, like I said, before you even get it, they want to make sure you're going to take good care of those lungs, and that you're going to do all the things you're supposed to do that they ask. And that was kind of the main thing. And then afterwards, right away, they actually they try to encourage you to write a letter to your donor family. Yeah.
Tell me about that process.
Yeah, well, you write a letter, and you have to be really careful what you say, because they don't want, I wouldn't mind I'd love to know who the donor family was, but, I understand there's different circumstances, and they might not, want to be known, so, but you're not supposed to let them know hints of who you might be. So even when I was giving like a TV interview, I couldn't say when exactly I had my transplant, because I don't want people to figure that out. Just for your privacy's sake, so.
Do you have much to do with other transplant people, either donors or recipients? Is there much of a, dare I say it, organisation or a committee or a club or something?
Yeah, even seeing a lot of the people in Brisbane get together a lot. Like after my transplant, we had to stay in Brisbane for 3 months, and I would go to physical therapy, and you meet people. Like I met a lot of people who were waiting to get their transplant, and that was really an interesting process. It was really exciting. Like if you heard that someone, they're not in physio the next day because they are getting a transplant. And then one lady was, I don't know, I should say this, it's actually pretty sad. She couldn't get a match. I think it was something with her blood type. So I know she was really hoping she'd get her lungs, and she didn't get her lungs. So that's the thing that really hurts. It really feels, and I also know a guy from Toowoomba. It was interesting because this guy and his wife, who really supported me in the beginning, they came and talked to me about what it's like, and like the nurse coordinator had sent them to me, and he's from Toowoomba, and he's actually American too, so that was really interesting. And he passed away this year. He had a lot of struggles. So you have those people, you make those friends, and then I'm doing so good, and then you have these people, you go and they're just really trying to get through, and they're having a lot of issues, because a lot of issues that come from either medication or rejection. You can have rejection, so that's been hard, but at the same time I really appreciate and care about those people. So
well, you talked about that on the weekend at the Remembrance service, and I'm not sure whether it was you or whether it was someone else, but someone said, we're here today to not only give thanks for the organs that we've received, but to think about the people who didn't receive them, and the people who have lost them. And so, services like that, I think, obviously they focus your mind and put you somewhere where you can always be thankful for it. You mentioned to me the other day about the anti-rejection drugs and the steroids, and I was reading that the steroids can kind of make you behave in odd ways. Can you talk me about? Oh, you said that. Yeah, so tell me about that.
Oh, yeah, steroids. Especially when you first get your transplant, you're on really high steroids. Or if I had COVID this year, and so they put you on really high steroids, and they do make you feel a bit like crazy. But I have a very patient husband, so if I say something, he'll just make a joke about steroids, and then we laugh, and That's it. But yeah, they do. They make you feel a bit just angry sometimes.
Angry, is it?
Yeah, a bit angry, but it doesn't last. Like it's not something that would last. It may last just like a second. Because I think for me, having a husband who's so calm and he'll say something about it in a joking way, which just kind of makes me just relax. So it's that kind of thing. It's just something you just get kind of angry, and then you're like, why am I angry about this? It's not that important. Mm-hmm. So
and say for someone like you with the whole COVID thing, talk to me about what that was like for you and the fear of the fear. That was another thing that I read. People go through this emotion of the disease coming back. They've got this transplant, and then the disease might come back. But then to have something as ferocious as COVID around at a time where you've just had a double lung transplant.
Yeah, it was interesting because I didn't live in fear. I decided that I'm not going to live in fear because I know some of my transplant friends kind of do live in fear and they just won't go out of their house. And but at the same time, when that whole COVID thing happened, I would say that I was a bit on edge because we lived downtown and we used to walk a lot at the shops because you could still go there. And we just walk because our daughter, she liked to get out, so we would go and just do a lot of walking. And you do think about it, and you think about the people you come in contact with, and and hoping they don't have it. So it was a bit of a. I'm trying to remember when I didn't get it right away. I didn't get it till like the first round. Anyway, so.
Now, yeah. April, why is it so ironic that you were able to go back to work? What type of work do you do?
I'm a music teacher, so I teach private vocal and piano lessons.
So you're a singer?
Oh, and I'm a singer. Sorry, yeah, we are in a covers band. So yeah, so singing is my thing that I love doing, and yeah, I just love singing. So I couldn't sing for quite a while, and that was really hard. Yeah.
I mean, of all the professions, when you said that the other day, I was so blown away that, yes, everyone wants to get back to work, but your work is singing, and it's so much about being able to breathe and being able to project and being strong and all of that. So just tell me about, now you said that we want to talk about Fibonacci and what Fibonacci... Yeah. Fibonacci is your band?
Fibonacci
or is Fibonacci...
band.
Yes?
Yes, yeah.
Yep, okay. So you and Nathan and someone else are in a band?
Yes.
And you have a music school as well?
Yes, yeah.
Well, this is your chance to give Fibonacci. Why did you call it Fibonacci?
Well,
has it got
Fibonacci
something
band,
to do with the sequence of numbers?
Yes, yeah. Do you want to explain it? Because we just thought it was cool.
You'll have to explain it because you're close to the microphone.
No, you explain it. Oh, I see. Oh, gosh. My husband explains it.
We'll cut all this bit out, Leroy. Hang on. So,
okay.
Well, hang on. We'll get Nathan to explain Fibonacci. Why is the band called Fibonacci, Nathan? Welcome, Nathan, to Big Little Small Talk. Now, Nathan is April's husband, and he's been sitting here the whole time. And I did want to talk to you too about what it's like to be the husband or the carer of someone who has a double lung transplant. But let's talk about Fibonacci to start.
Sure. I worked as a school teacher for about 10 years, and one of my students did a assignment for me about the Fibonacci sequence and how those numbers are built into the design of just almost everything around us, from the bones in our fingers to the number of branches on a tree to the famous design of the shell, the way even the galaxies spiral in the Fibonacci sequence. There's a whole thing about the music series which is related to the Fibonacci sequence. Just everywhere you look, it's like this thing that's deeply encoded in the universe around us.
So that felt right for the name of your band, obviously.
I was just so intrigued with it. I thought, Fibonacci band, it kind of sounds Italian, and who knows. And usually you get the most response from places like we did for a bunch of doctors, and almost like had about 4 or 5 doctors come up to me separately, and they're like, Fibonacci sequence, oh yeah, what are they talking about it? So wherever there's any sort of, sort of a more intellectual crowd, they really appreciate the Fibonacci sequence for some reason.
Who knew? You just have to call yourself your band something. Don't call yourself Cold Chisel. Call yourself Fibonacci, and you'll get all the doctors' gigs. So Nathan, tell me about being the support person for someone who has a double lung transplant. I know you've probably been asked this question 100 times, but what's it like as the main person who's holding it all together? I guess
it requires vision and stamina. You have to be able to really understand that you are here for the long haul, and you're here to, you've made a commitment, and you just, there's also just, you love that person and you want to see them get better, and you're a family unit. And I made vows to April, for better, for worse, richer or poorer, all those kind of things. And this is where the rubber meets the road. You just got to come through and be a person of your word. So that's the foundations of what's going on there. But at the same time, I have a desire to care for her and just see her get better. And obviously it was very difficult going through all those particular times, but there was still a very strong sense of hope that ran through everything. We never sat around and abandoned hope. It was never a time where we were like, oh, this is just too hard, let's just all give up. There was always joy and there was always hope, and that's got a lot to do with our, that's the upside of having a religious background too, is that there's always a very strong sense of hope that runs through everything that you do. And when I think back on those times, in the darkest times when April could barely breathe and things like that, there was always that connection that we had, that this is not the end, that there is we believed in prayer and things like that. And so it was when I think back on those times, I don't think of them as obviously it was difficult, but it wasn't a time of just complete utter despair or tears and that kind of thing. We really clung to each other, and we clung to our faith, and we really, it was quite a time. But there's some really interesting things you need to know about April. I'll tell you one story. The Toowoomba people, who were fantastic, when they were looking after April here in Toowoomba, there were some doctors who just said, look, it's time to go to palliative care. This is not happening for you. I really doubt you're going to survive this. And one time I came in and I came in the morning there, and I was standing behind the curtain, and all the doctors were standing around April's bed talking to her, and April was sitting there with the high oxygen, barely be able to talk even. And one of the doctors said, look, I think it's about time you went to palliative care. And April went, I believe in miracles. And the doctor was like, yeah, but do your family believe in miracles too? And April said yes. So it was that kind of, she was strong the whole time, even though she couldn't breathe. She knew she was going to live because she just had that faith and that hope. And that was one very distinct memory I have of that whole situation, where April was determined to see this through, even though she could barely move or breathe, and the doctors were recommending that she go into palliative care. And it was a bit of a miracle that they took her actually down, because the Toowoomba doctors had finished doing all the tests, and probably April didn't really tell you what's going on here, but they called up down there with their recommendations that she go into palliative care. And for some reason, Prince Charles Hospital was just like, no, bring her down, we'll take her. So I don't know what changed their minds, or what that person who answered the phone that day, or that doctor who answered the phone down there. There was just, there's all these very interesting stories in the whole situation where things just came together for April. Even to the point where the most fascinating story happened about a week afterwards, her transplant. Now, doctors do not tell you anything that goes on inside the theatre. I mean, it's just private, I suppose, and they don't even tell the patients, they don't tell families, they don't say anything. And we heard this second-hand story about April's situation. I have a friend in Toowoomba here who's a radiologist, and she went down to Sydney for a medical conference. And when she was in Sydney, at this conference, she happened to sit next to, just out of all the thousands of people that were there, a doctor from Prince Charles Hospital in Brisbane. And they were just discussing what they do, and he said, I work in the lung transplant department. And this friend of mine said, I know someone who just recently had a lung transplant last week.
Patient A?
Yes, she didn't say who it was, but this doctor said, I know exactly who you're talking about. And he said to her, if you knew the story behind that was an absolute miracle. And I know doctors don't use the M word. There are no miracles in the scientific world. But for this situation, and out of our hearing, this doctor said this was a miracle. So I don't know what happened. Something happened in there that they were just amazed that she was alive. They said her lungs just looked like little black pieces of honeycomb. So I don't know why. Maybe they just thought it's amazing that she's alive, and that the lungs that they had were absolutely perfect for her, or whatever was going on there. The whole situation was regarded as a miracle by this doctor who was part of this whole process, and
There was a fair bit of lining up of the planets or something else. And I'll just remind the listeners that they're on 40dB and it's 102.7 FM. It's community radio, and you're with me, Megan O'Hara-Sullivan, on Big Little Small Talk. Now, Nathan is the husband of April, who's had a double lung transplant. How did you hook up with a girl from Toledo, Ohio?
I'm actually a music director, and this would have happened about, 2001. I went over to Hawaii for my sister's wedding, and she married this guy whose dad was a pastor in a big church over in Toledo. And at the reception there, I was playing the piano and doing my jazz and things like that, and this pastor comes over to me and he says, "Oh, you should come over and be our music director one day." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, sure, as if that's going to happen, whatever." And then go back home. And about 2 years later, circumstances just sort of came around in Toowoomba here, where the thought of going over to the US was suddenly very attractive, and all the pieces just fell into place. And I found myself as a music director over in a church over there, because a lot of churches have it's like hierarchy goes pastor, music director, and way down the bottom's like a youth pastor, that kind of thing. So music directors are pretty, they're very much part of church life over there in all different types of churches. And it was a very diverse, multicultural church. So you had a lot of African Americans and Latino people, and so we had a great time over there. And I was there for 3 years as a music director, and that's where I met April and dragged her back to Australia. So.
And now we made reference a little bit when we're expecting Chloe home from school any old moment, but tell me about Chloe and her disability and what that's been like as a journey for you as a family.
Yeah, Chloe is, she's profoundly deaf and classified as blind, even though she may see something. We're not quite sure what she sees because her communication skills are not great. But she's a happy little girl. She's about 15, and she is goes to Clifford Park Special School. She was born with something called hydrocephalus, which is kind of like a brain injury. Fluid, a lot of fluid on the brain. They weren't sure what was going to happen. They thought that she just might be in like some sort of vegetative state for the rest of her life. But she's also another little determined miracle who has sprouted and has her own little personality and world that she grows up in now, and is quite it's amazing what she does with what she's got. She can establish little routines in her life, and she does so much with the very little vision that she has, and she's a bit of a miracle. And maybe April could tell a bit more about Chloe's thing, but I know she's a bit of a miracle, little girl.
So does Chloe communicate with you? Do you feel as though she's communicating with you, April?
Well, yeah, she has her different ways of communicating. She doesn't communicate with signs like you would think of. Like if she wants something, if she's in the bedroom and she wants her light on, she'll just pull your hand to the blind. And that kind of means everything. Like if she's too hot, she'll pull your hand to the blind. That's her way of telling me. So she doesn't really get the sign thing. I give her signs, she understands them, but she'll just use her hand to pull. Like if she doesn't want her belt on, or her coat on, she'll just use her hand and pull like that. Like
I had to say, and in a minute I'm going to get you to, you've written a song about being a transplant recipient, and when you were playing the other day, I was watching Chloe, and do you feel that music soothes her?
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess because she can't hear, it's hard to say, but I do think she feels probably feels something, feels the beat. And Nathan she likes touching, when we played with our band and we went to a friend's house they had a house party and they invited us to play. And so she was there and she put her hand in the drum and really loved doing that because her uncle plays the drums. And then she put her hand on the bass speaker so she can feel it. And when Nathan plays the guitar, I know she likes to touch the strings. So, yeah. So even though she can't hear, I feel like music does still, you can still kind of like have some fun with her with the music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For you as a family, having a child with a disability and I guess precarious health, do you worry, or do you just put the worry behind you and put it behind you?
Yeah, we just put it behind us. Like this year we had a big year because Chloe was in hospital for 6 weeks. I mean, she's just been healthy and strong, and all of a sudden, because she got a shunt when she was born, and that drains fluid off of her head. So all of a sudden, after 15 years, 'cause she had it when she was first born, the shunt decided, it wasn't working anymore. So we went into hospital, and then let's see, I think the first time they changed it, it got infected. The second time, I hate saying this but they accidentally cut her bowel, and it was just. And she just was in so much pain. It was just really, that's what's hard for us, is when she's in pain and things like that happen. But they were really good to us. They took good care of us. And, I mean, it was just something that happened. They didn't mean to do it. And then we had to wait a few weeks for her to have another surgery. So us being in hospital and just seeing her hurting and sick is hard, because, you just want her to be whole and thriving. And so other things aren't hard. Like, we just have fun as a family. We don't really know, she's our only child. We don't really know, any other ways. So we just kind of have fun and enjoy each other. Yeah.
Now, I'm going to run out of time like I always do, but just to not put too fine a point on it, all of the medical treatment that you've had here in Australia, in Toowoomba and in Brisbane, and with Chloe's help, that has all been covered by the public health system?
Oh, yes. It has been amazing. Yes. Like, I couldn't believe it, because I'm American, and there, insurance is expensive. You pay for it. Like, I got mine through work, but it's just ridiculous. But here, I just could not believe, from Chloe having her shunt redone and me having a lung transplant, the Australian health care, I just thought it was fabulous. Yes. So, yeah, I feel very grateful to be here.
It would have been millions of dollars in debt.
Yeah. Millions of dollars in debt, Nathan says from the corner. All right, now we might. I might just close it off. So, April, I'm running out of time, as what happens to me all the time. But I'll just ask you a few questions before we finish. Now, what made you smile today?
Oh, I would say something that made me smile today was my husband Nathan was spraying our patio with water. Power washing. And our little puppy pug was out there and just thought it was the greatest thing, was kind of running around, like running in vast circles. And I just thought that was the funniest and cutest thing. So, that made me smile.
Well, that's people who are real dog lovers, they say, oh, he was a funny dog. And I always think, what do they mean by a dog being funny? But maybe that's it, the pug chasing the gurney.
Yeah, because they just have funny personalities, yes.
I would imagine with the amount of time that you've spent in hospiil, you'd be a reader. Are you a reader? What was the last good book that you read?
Oh, well, I'd say it's been, I do read a lot of things on my Kindle, but my favorite book is that I've read a few times is Lord of the Rings, so... Yeah.
Lord of the Rings, perfect. Sam Rice Ganges. Lord of the Rings is one of those things that I have not read, but my children and my husband all love Lord of the Rings. And it's one of those things like learning how to play chess or being able to drink straight scotch. I would love to know something about the Lord of the Rings to hold my own up. And Sam Rice Ganges is the only thing I can say. Yeah. And the Fellowship of the Ring.
That's so funny. I love that.
All right. What about if you were a circus character, or if you were in a circus, what character would you be?
I'd say a trapeze artist.
Ooh.
Because I just think it looks really fun.
Yeah, and fun's good, and glamorous too.
And glamorous, and I love how they, the trapeze artists, the girls, the way they glam up, and and I like that a lot.
You love wearing spandex?
Oh yes, I love wearing spandex. No, that's a joke. So
well, I can see you as a trapeze artist. April, you're a young person. Have you ever stalked someone on social media?
Yes.
Tell me.
Well, mainly, this is gonna kind of sometimes like other bands and stuff. Not when I say stalk them, it's more like, what are they doing? Like, especially bands from Brisbane. So that's
the
secret's out.
Research. Rather than stalking.
Yeah.
Stalking's got a bad connotation, hasn't it?
Yeah,
Maybe I should rephrase that.
Oh no, but we do always call it. My friends and I always call it stalking. Like, just especially if I don't know, like maybe someone from college or someone who I used to know. And so, yeah, so just wanting to see, we do call it stalking, but just wanting to see what are they doing now, and, just
my
things like that.
sisters and I always talk about back in the day, people disappeared. You went out with someone, they disappeared from your life. You never heard from them again. Now you can find them all.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
See how middle-aged and, not
yeah, and
good
people
looking
love
they
to
are.
put all their info out there. So I just think it's interesting. So people love to just put their whole life on Facebook, or Instagram, and so you can definitely see what's going on.
Yes, exactly. It's a good thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Except the only thing is they're doing it to us as well.
Yes, I think
hopefully.
probably.
What about bringing in an American? You might not be a real royal watcher. So if I was to ask you who your favourite royal person is, who would you say?
I'd say Kate. I really like Kate because she's just elegant and she just seems really nice. So, yeah, she seems like a good mom.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very good. And what about the song? Now, this is going to be good. That can't keep you off the dance floor, you being a muso and all.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. I'm usually on the other side of it. So I'd say a song like I Love Blame It on the Boogie, Michael Jackson. So, and that's also the song when we sing it, people seem to run out on the dance floor, and it always makes me happy. So
Waterloo is the other one.
Oh,
A
except
bit of ABBA, Waterloo, and Blame It on the Boogie.
yes.
All right, now speaking of songs, you wrote a song about your experience being a double lung transplant person, and you and your husband Nathan have been going to sing it for me. So
Yes.
if I can count you in, or you can count you in, I'll leave it to you to sing the song.
Yes,
Can you tell me a little bit about the process of writing it? And
yeah, I was asked to sing at Brisbane at a Remembrance service, and I just didn't want to sing. They gave me some suggestions, and I'm like, oh, can I write my own song? Because I just wanted to say my own words to say thank you, basically to the families, something special for them, of my own words of how I felt. So,
lovely,
Yeah.
take it away. What's the song called?
because of you. Not everyone gets a second chance. Not everyone can change their circumstance. But some gracious soul comes along and gives it all away. It's hard to find a human family that doesn't know the pain of tragedy. Some gracious soul comes along and helps to ease the pain. Because of you, I will give more, love more, be more. Because of you, I can give more, love more. I can be all I can be. Because of you. A gift of life in time of tragedy. This is the best of our humanity. A final act of grace. They gave themselves away so I could live. Because of you, I will give more, love more, be more. Because of you, I can give more, love more. I can be all I can be. Because of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I will always remember. I will never forget. because of you.
That was amazing. It's so beautiful. There's nothing like the power of a song to make you come undone, isn't it? And I think that's probably the best gift that you've put out to the world there, to say thank you. April and Nathan, thank you so much for being my guest on Big Little Small Talk today. It's been a real pleasure to hear your story and to see the courage of your convictions. I thought the one thing that you didn't say when you were mentioning the vows, Nathan, you said, you know, to love and whatever, you didn't say in sickness and in health.
That's right.
And that was the most important.
That was definitely the one I should have put in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
It's been such a joy. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That's it for this week. Thanks for joining me on Big Little Small Talk. I hope you can make the time to join me next week. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on your favourite podcast app.